Now, the cool thing about blood types is that actually can help us understand the way the immune system works. Blood cells, or red blood cells with these surface proteins, are basically going to generate a reaction in any foreign body that has different proteins. And so that's how we recognize what belongs to our body and what doesn't. So if I am with the A type, I will have antibodies against people who are different from me, so therefore I will have B type antibodies. And these antibodies are particles which will react with the B type, causing clotting of the blood, for example, and cause severe reactions in the recipient. So if somebody from the A type receives blood from the B type, that could lead to the death of the person because of the clotting of the blood and all sorts of other immune reactions. This was discovered as we were trying to figure out how transfusions worked. And in fact, the RH blood system, we're going to talk about in a second, was actually discovered first in rhesus monkeys. And many of these blood type systems were also discovered in other primates. But transfusions among animals were used in order to understand what was happening with the blood, and eventually people figured out that there had to be different kinds of blood because of these reactions that were happening between the animals that were receiving the transfusions. Now we know that there are actually many types of blood type systems, and there are many types of different surface proteins in the surface of the blood. And there's also factors in the plasma of the blood, because blood is, remember, it's not just the blood cells. It's also got plasma inside of it. It's got platelets inside of it. It's got white blood cells. So there's a lot of other things in the blood that can lead to cause reactions during a transfusion. And most of the time, though, when you're talking about transfusion, you're talking about compatibility in terms of packed red blood cells, you know. And so, well, let's talk about the patterns of donation now that we understand how the antigens work out. So, since the O type has no antigens, it will have antibodies against anything foreign, therefore A or B, when you're talking about the ABO system, and therefore it will have a reaction with anything that has either A or B there. That means it cannot receive blood from A, B, or AB cells, and it can only receive blood from itself. So that's kind of how the O type is. It's bad to have an O type if you need a transfusion, because you're not going to be able to receive blood from most people. However, since you don't have an antigen, the O type can donate blood to everybody, and you can see that here on the right side, because he cannot create a reaction if he doesn't have an antigen. It's pretty cool. So the O type will be the universal donor. Now, if you're an A blood type, you have the B antigen, sorry, the A antigen. If you're an A blood type, you have the A antigen and the B antibody, which means anything with the B type will create a reaction. So the B type or the AB type, both which have the B protein in the surface, will create a reaction against the A type. Now, the O type or the A type will not cause a reaction against the red blood cells of A type people, because the O type does not have antigens and the A type has the same ones. So you can receive blood from the O type or from the A type itself. So you can always receive blood from your blood type or from O. And you can always donate, it seems, to yourself or to AB. And we'll talk about that in a second. So now the B type has B type antigens and therefore antibodies against the A type. So anything with the A type would therefore cause a reaction with B type people. So the A type, which has the A protein, and the AB type, which also shows the A protein, will cause bad reactions. Meaning, again, the B type can only receive from itself or from O. And you see that pattern here on the right as well. Now, because the AB type has both antigens, it cannot have antibodies, which means it can receive blood from everybody. Now, what that means is that the AB type will be the universal recipient. But it cannot donate to anyone except for itself, because it has both antigens, and so everybody will receive a reaction when receiving blood from the AB type. So the general rule, again, is that you can always receive blood from yourself or from O, and you can always donate blood to yourself or to AB. And that's kind of like the best way to remember this. Or you can remember that even if you don't remember what happens, if you remember that the type equals antigen and that they will have antibodies for anything that's not their type, then you know that you can predict these reactions yourself, like we talked about in this video. Now, in addition to the ABO system, there are many other types of surface proteins in the red blood cells. And remember, like I said, the plasma has proteins itself and platelets and white blood cells. So there's a lot more that goes into transfusion than just what we talked about. In fact, more than 30 different types of blood type systems have been discovered by scientists, and one type of blood system called the RH group includes over 50 different kinds of surface proteins, the most important of which is the D-type surface protein of the RH system. And it can be either positive or negative for this protein. Now, the interesting thing is that people who are positive for this protein cannot generate reactions, and therefore they can actually receive blood from anyone of their ABO type. That makes the AB plus type universal recipient, and he can actually receive blood from everybody. To read this chart on the left side here, when you read it this way, you're looking at receiving, and when you read it this way, you're looking at donating the blood. So that means your OH negative over here on the red side is the universal donor, because it cannot generate a reaction. Because it has a negative thing, it can actually donate blood to everybody. Meanwhile, the AB positive, like we said, it doesn't generate antibodies. It doesn't have antibodies of the rhesus factor discovered in the monkeys, and now we know humans have as well, which means the AB type can actually receive blood from absolutely everybody. And so you see that the AB plus is considered the universal recipient, while the O negative is considered the universal donor. And then you can see the other patterns here on the table as well. Now, an interesting thing that happens because of this is that if you have a mother that is actually Rh negative, so you talk about a mother that's Rh negative, okay, and she has a fetus that is Rh positive, and accidentally some of the red blood cells of the fetus get through the placenta and get transferred into the body of the mother, the immune system of the female will generate Rh positive antibodies, and it will basically immunize the mother against that. Now, the next time that the mother has a baby, or even that same pregnancy, if the fetus is of a positive type again, this time the mother will have antibodies against the fetus, which will actually create a syndrome in which the mother's immune system will attack the fetus across the placenta and end up just killing the fetus. This is called the hemolytic syndrome, and it will happen if the mother was exposed to Rh plus blood either through a previous fetus or through the transfusion, making the current pregnancy or all future pregnancies with incompatible Rh factor blood types more susceptible to the hemolytic diseases that will end up killing the fetus. And of course, this is also important when you're talking about organ transfer or blood transfers. And so we discovered this as we're trying to save people in modern medicine. And you can see actually what happens here with the babies during the hemolytic syndrome. There's all sorts of symptoms, including brain, blood, and physiological structure damages, and jaundice, and all kinds of problems that many times ends up killing the young baby.